welcome to another episode of It's a Learning Life for Real. I'm Tamika, and today we are talking about all things conflict. Do you know your conflict style, and do you want to get better at dealing with conflict? That's what we're going to talk about. So if you're new to my channel, welcome. If you are coming back, welcome again. So happy that you joined me. Here on It's a Learning Life for Real, I use my experiences as a learning and organizational development professional to share insights on how you can improve your skills personally and professionally. Remember to hit like and subscribe so you never miss a video whenever I upload one. So what is conflict and how do you deal with it? Do you know your conflict style? Let's get started. As we get started, the question I have for you is, do you like conflict? And chances are your first reaction is going to be, no, I don't like conflict. And that comes from the fact that most of us have a predominantly negative perspective whenever we hear the word conflict. Some people think, run for the hills, I want nothing to do with it. But the truth of the matter is, conflict is an important part, or is a regular part of our everyday life. And it's a part of everyday life because we come from different backgrounds. We have different personalities, we have different values, and we have different things that are important to us. So when you put two persons in a relationship from different backgrounds with different experiences and different perspectives on life, it's natural that you can have conflict. So multiply that over and over to the workplace where you have several different people from diverse backgrounds coming together. Conflict is naturally going to emerge in terms of how it is that you get things done, or how it is that you may view an issue or a problem. So conflict is a part of everyday life. At work, it's also an important dynamic of relationships with friends and family. And because we want to minimize the dysfunctional parts of conflict, what we have to do is we have to pay attention to how we communicate. We have to pay attention to how we interact with each other so as to minimize the dysfunctional aspects or the negative aspects of conflict, while still acknowledging the value of conflict in terms of how it can improve our decision making and or our problem solving. At work, conflicts can emerge as a result of unclarified roles, disagreement on how it is that policies and procedures are to be interpreted, personality differences, and so on and so forth. How to use resources, those are common points of conflict within teams, in organizations. And in some instances, whereas yes, we know that conflict can create a toxic work environment and stress and just create a situation where people get disengaged and demoralized, one of the things that we have to think about is that conflict can also have some healthy and productive benefits for teams. If we avoid the thinking that conflict is negative, conflict on a work team when you're trying to solve a problem or making a decision could be a sign that your team is engaged, they care about the issues, and they want to see the best outcome. So in a lot of instances, if you're making a decision and you have conflict because there's not agreement on the way forward, it could be that that conflict could highlight areas of groupthink where a lot of times you're on teams and people are just going along with the decision because it's the boss who said it or because of who made the proposal. So in some instances, when you have disagreement, this could actually help to highlight where you might have blind spots, where you might not be thinking about all the different aspects of an issue. And it can generate ideas that can help the organization in the long run. Too often you see in organizations where people fail to speak up because they're afraid of dissenting, appearing to be in disagreement with the leader, the manager, or whoever is running the meeting. They don't want to, quote unquote, rock the boat. So they have great ideas or they have different views and they don't share those views. And in the end, it could be that down the road, had they shared that view, it could have helped to minimize some of the risks that you run upon. But because they didn't want to rock the boat, because they didn't want to come across as having a different view or not agreeing with the rest of the team, they keep quiet. So organization lose lots of money every year because of just people not being brave enough, or sometimes sharing the views because they don't want to appear to be in disagreement. So yes, we can talk about the dysfunctional parts of conflict and what that costs organization, because yes, that comes at a cost too. But also when people avoid conflict, when they avoid disagreeing with each other, when they avoid the debate, they also end up risking company profitability because of the loss of ideas and also solutions that could have come out of healthy discussions. So we want to just be aware that conflict isn't necessarily dysfunctional, it isn't necessarily negative. Conflict becomes negative and dysfunctional when we don't acknowledge it and when we don't address it. But by itself, conflict isn't necessarily negative. Similarly, when it comes on to personal relationships, you could find that conflict turns up in your relationships when it comes on to how couples or partners make decisions. It could be that one partner is concerned about saving money and the other person is just concerned with how to spend it as fast as they make it. So different values on how people treat money, how people their views on parenting, different perspectives on where they want to live, and so on and so forth, can create conflict in relationships. Views about religion and faith can also be another source of conflict. Another way that we see conflict manifest in relationships, in our personal relationships, is associated with unmet needs or expectations. In a lot of instances, if you were to look behind or beneath the surface of a conflict that was happening in a relationship, you would probably find that the conflict emerged from an unmet expectation or an unmet need. So one of the things that we want to get better at doing, rather than responding to the symptom of a problem or the symptom of the conflict, you want to step away from just looking at that to looking beneath the surface. Think about, say, the iceberg analogy, and you want to think about what might be going on with that person, and you might want to be thinking about what it is that they may need, and or what are your needs. What is driving the conflict for you? What is it that, which need do you have that has not been met? That's one of the things that you want to be thinking about. So having established that conflict isn't negative, having established that conflict isn't necessarily bad or dysfunctional, how can we then get better at understanding how we show up in terms of our conflict style? At this point, I'm going to share with you 5 conflict styles, and I want you to be thinking about which conflict style do you predominantly use? Do you have a conflict style? And can you recognize some of these styles probably in your family members, with your friends, with your loved ones? Or can you recognize teammates and colleagues who you think use these conflict styles? So of the 5 styles, the very first one is the competing style, aka the shark. And if you can think about the shark in your head, the shark is the win-lose, takes the win-lose approach to dealing with conflict. For the shark, it's my way or the highway. Shark is concerned with getting their needs met to the detriment of others. They are not high on prioritizing relationship. It's all about them winning and ensuring that they get their needs met. And shark tends to force his or her will and perspective on others. That's how sharks show up in that competing style of dealing with conflict. Another style of dealing with conflict is the accommodating styles, aka the teddy bear. Teddy bear wants to smooth things over. The teddy bear does not want to rock the boat. The teddy bear in some instances yield or give up their needs and rights so as to make other people happy. And it's not that they don't recognize that there's a conflict, but they tend to ignore the conflict because they don't want to ruffle feathers. They don't want to rock the boat. So in a lot of instances, they sacrifice their needs and interests because they're seeking to maintain the peace, to be diplomatic, and just to maintain relationships. So that's how the teddy bear, aka the accommodating style, shows up when dealing with conflict. And as I said, I want you to be thinking about what style do you use. Are you the shark or are you the teddy bear? But before you make your mind up, I'm also going to share with you the third style to dealing with conflict is the avoiding style. And this style is represented by the turtle. So as you can imagine, People who utilize the avoiding approach, or people who show up as turtles, they usually take on this approach because they think conflict is dysfunctional. They want nothing at all to do with conflict. They see conflict as inherently negative, and they seek to avoid conflict at all costs. So if they see a disagreement coming, they're the first one to walk away, to hold their head down, or to step back. They want to have nothing to do with conflict. The danger of this approach, though, is that by ignoring the conflict, by walking away from the conflict, from unacknowledging the conflict, it doesn't mean the conflict go away. The conflict stays, and what that does in a lot of instances, it leads to pent up emotions and feelings, unexpressed frustrations, and over time this builds up. And what you find happens, much like they say about cancer, if cancer is not detected early and or treated, it can result in death. So in the instances where turtles walk away from the problems, refuse to acknowledge and or address it, then you find that the unmet needs and frustrations build up over time, relationships get damaged, and sometimes get to the point where you wake up one day and you're wondering, how did the relationship fall apart, or what happened? But what happened simply is that you saw conflict over time, didn't deal with it. It led to continued problems and breakdown in communication. People isolated, people got defensive, and before you knew it, relationships are broken, and people wake up and they're no longer good friends, they're no longer on speaking terms, or you no longer have great relationships at work. So that's an example of how the turtle and or the avoider conflict style manifest in our everyday lives. Another conflict style is the compromising style, and the compromising style is represented by the fox. The fox in this instance is concerned with trying to get, in this conflict style, the two parties are seeking to acknowledge and or meet each other's needs. So this isn't a win-lose situation, nor is it a win-win situation. It's more of, I'll give up some of mine if you give up some of yours, kind of thing. So you give to get. And in the instance where you are compromising in this conflict style, what happens is that you come up with a satisfactory arrangement or agreement, but nobody's satisfied because I did not get my needs met, you did not get your needs met, but we came up with a workable, quote unquote, solution. So the drawback, quote unquote, of the compromising style is that nobody really gets what they want. You're able to preserve the relationship, but nobody walks away feeling satisfied or feeling that their needs were honored or met in this particular approach. But it's still nonetheless another valid conflict style or way that people approach conflict. The fifth and final approach or conflict style is the collaborating conflict style, and this one is represented by the wise owl, or the owl, so to speak. And what owls do when they're in conflict is they are not afraid to confront the conflict, to address the conflict, to acknowledge the conflict, and they typically are very concerned with maintaining relationships. So it's about you saying what your needs are and the other person saying what their needs are, and both persons working together to ensure that your needs are met, my needs are met, and we're able to get to a point where both of us can walk away from that conflict feeling as if the situation was resolved in your interest and also in the interest of others. So this collaborative approach focuses very heavily on maintaining relationships. So that's how the owls show up in conflict situations and or the collaborating conflict style. Having shared the 5 conflict styles, the competing shark, the accommodating teddy bear, I'm forgetting these. So having shared the 5 conflict styles, the competing shark, the accommodating teddy bear, the avoiding turtle, the compromising fox, and the collaborating owl, which conflict style do you think you predominantly use? Are you the turtle? Are you the shark? Are you the teddy bear? Are you the owl? I want you to be thinking through what is the predominant conflict style that you use and or that you see in your family members and or the persons at work. And not only do I want you to be thinking about how it is that you deal with conflict in terms of your own conflict styles, But I also want you to remember that it's not unusual for persons to have for somebody to show up as a shark in one particular area and or as a teddy bear in another particular area. So perhaps when it comes on to a conflict, it could be a conflict at work, and if it is that the conflict is with your supervisor or a senior manager, it could be that in that conflict you show up as a teddy bear because it's very important not to ruffle feathers. You want to keep your job, so you can't afford to step on toes and so on and so forth. So you may show up as a teddy bear in that instance. But it could be that in a total different area. Say for instance, you were trying to buy a good or a service, and in that instance you're the customer and you feel as if you did not get the service that you wanted. It could be that you show up as a shark because it's all about, I need to get my money's worth, or I need to get what I paid for, and you're not so concerned with the business or the service provider because you have no intentions of using them again. So it's not unusual that you can use a particular conflict style in one situation and a conflict style in another situation. So thank you for watching another video. Until next time, remember, it's a learning life for